Following a contentious governorship screening in Osun State, the APC, precisely President Bola Tinubu, met with the All Progressive Congress leaders and aspirants, governorship aspirants, to appeal for unity ahead of the party's primary on December 13. The meeting held Monday night at the State House in Abuja and confirmed by presidential spokesperson Bayo Ononuga brought together 8 aspirants, including former Deputy Governor Benedict Alabi, Senator Babajide Omoworare, and Akin Ogunbiyi, alongside the APC National Chairman, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, and former Osun Governor Adegboyega Oyetola. Tinubu praised their contributions to the party but warned against internal divisions that previously cost the APC elections, stressing that party supremacy and collective responsibility must guide the choice of a flag bearer. A joint statement after the meeting confirmed all aspirants agreed to accept a consensus candidate, follow the party-led nomination process, and work together to ensure APC's victory in the forthcoming governorship election in August 8 in Osogbo.
Well, for more on this, we're joined in the studio by Ismail Omipidan, Deputy Editor and Head of Politics, The Sun newspaper, and former Chief Press Secretary to former Governor Boyega Oyetola. Great to have you this morning. Let's start with what's happening in Osun State. The Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, who happens to be your former boss, is being accused of being the arrowhead behind the disqualification of some aspirants in the Osun State APC primaries. Being an attempt, by him to take charge of the APC structure in the state. How would you respond to that?
Well, thank you very much. First, let me say clearly that I am not Oyetola's spokesman. I was a spokesman from 2019 up until December last year. However, as a stakeholder in Osun, as someone who has been very much interested in the happenings in Osun as far back as 2010, I believe very strongly that I followed the events and I can speak authoritatively on the things I know. It would be unfair to accuse Oyetola of trying to take charge of the party. Don't forget that by the APC's constitution, where you do not have a governor, the highest political office holder assumes the leadership position. Although in Osun case is peculiar because we have Baba Bisi Akande, but even before shortly after I was appointed minister, they called a stakeholders meeting where he was formally pronounced as the leader of the party. And since then, he has done everything and anything to ensure cohesion within the party. This is the first time in the history of Osun that a party will lose power and still remain intact 3 years after losing power. In 2003, after Chief Bisi Akande lost that re-election, the party disintegrated. In 2010, after Oyinola was sacked from office under the platform of the PDP too was never the same. So this is the first time that the party will remain intact after losing the election, and they never lost any member to the opposition, whether it's PDP, whether it's ADC. Instead, they have been attracting members to the party. So Oyetola was never part of the screening committee. He is not an official of the APC as we speak. And so it's unfair for one of our elders in the state, Iyola Omishore, to accuse him of that. But I can understand why he is doing that. He believes very strongly that the only person that could stand in his way and that ticket is Oyetola. And so whether he does anything or he doesn't do anything, naturally he would want to, accuse him of doing that. But I don't think that that is a fair, accusation. Okay. At any rate, his spokesperson issued a statement about 2-3 days ago to explain clearly that he had no hand in the disqualification.
Okay, in your opinion, how has Oyetola's withdrawal from the Osun APC race reshaped how things are?
Oyetola, he was never part of those angling to run again. Let me say this with all sense of modesty. After the 2022 election, we had a postmortem because I was with him up till December last year. And by mid last year, we tried to look at the situation of things. We tried to look at the happenings within the polity. And we had what I would call honest assessment of situation of things. And he came to the conclusion that since he has an assignment to do at the national level, he will be withdrawing from the race. And
okay,
exactly what he did.
let's get a better clarification here. Since you talked about the postmortem of the Osun 2022 governorship election, part of the report was that political recklessness, sheer arrogance, and excessive reliance on power of incumbency led to the APC's defeat at the 2022 election. And if you also want to clarify, what's the relationship between the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Mr. Boyega Oyetola, who is the former governor of Osun State, and the leader of APC in Osun State, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, who is also a former governor? What's the relationship between the two?
Well, as we speak today, Ogbeni Rauf is no longer a member of the APC. He's
Yes,
now,
I know.
Yeah, he's now in the ADC. I don't know if you saw the report. There was nowhere it was stated that recklessness or power of incumbency. If anything,
That was the post-mortem that was
yeah,
released.
but I have access to the report, and there was nothing like that. But in my own opinion, as a person, and what I want to say here, I've also documented it in my book. There are a series of events that led to what happened in 2022. I have said it repeatedly, and I will say it again. For me, I do not think that Oyetola lost that election. He only lost the vote count.
The reason I'm asking this question is that there seems to be a literal gunpoint bullying to submission to endorse Bola Oyebanji, the head of the Nigerian Inland Waterways, as the candidate, which violates the principle of internal democracy.
No, that is not correct. I don't think any principle of internal democracy has been violated. Now, all those who bought expression of interest form and nomination form are regarded as applicants. They applied to want to participate in the primaries. Now, if you go and look at the APC's constitution very well, I tell people, those who drafted that provisions, I am sure they did it deliberately. From my reading of that provision, my conclusion is that if you are not in charge of the party structure in the state, there is no way you can meet those conditions. And what are those conditions? You are expected to be nominated by 5 financially up-to-date members of the party from each of the local government. In the case of Osun, we have 30 local governments plus 1. Now, the party chairman wrote a covering letter forwarding a list of 90,000 members to the National Secretariat. So technically speaking, any applicant who wants to participate in the primaries must ensure that the 5 delegates of the 5 persons per local government must come from that list. But the information available to me is that Otumba Iola Omishore, probably maybe from experience, having served as the national secretary of the party, also paid for 120,000 members. Now, I went further to inquire from the national secretariat why they had to accept money from Omishore when they know that the party in Osun State had sent its own list. And what they told me was that the account details of the party is in the open, that nobody approached them to say they were paying for members. So he paid. Now, he took his own 5 members who signed the nomination form from the 120 list he sent. And so, technically speaking,
okay,
if the party is to do their verification, because the party went back to Osogbo to do validation of those 90 members, so there was no way his own 5 members per local government can come from that 90,000 members, and that was the basis upon which he was disqualified, that there is no way they can prove that those who signed this nomination form are members of the party who are paying their dues regularly.
Okay, in light of all that's going on, the president met with APC leaders and some aspirants from Osun State at the State House and asked them to be united, and they committed to a consensus candidate. But apparently, Iola Omisore was not in that meeting. How are you interpreting that situation? Because we know that because of internal disputes, the APC lost the last elections. How are you interpreting that situation?
Well, I want to say here that as at last night, I listened to an interview on one of the national television where Otumba Iola Omisore said clearly that he will be abiding by the decision of the party leadership, in this case, the outcome of the meeting at the villa. It is true that he was not at the meeting that was held, I think 2 days ago now, but I can confirm to you that I have it on a good authority that before then, he had met with the president, they had discussed, and the president had told him that because of the agitation for the Osun West to taste the power, that the party leadership are looking towards Osun West, whereas Otumba Iola Omisore is from Osun East.
Okay, well, still talking about the internal dynamics of the APC in Osun, do you believe that the media is giving a true reflection of what is going on?
Well, so far from the reportage of the events and from some of the analysis I have read, I can say correctly that the media has been, up to date, because it was through the media, for instance, yesterday that I got to know that even though Iola Omisore was not at the villa 2 days ago, he came out. I heard him. I watched the interview from beginning to the end to say that he was going to support the consensus candidate. And don't forget that by the Electoral Act, you choose your candidate either through direct primaries, indirect primaries, or consensus. And so consensus is also part of the process recognized by our law to nominate a flag bearer.
Yeah, but what we've seen so far, coming from former Senator Iola Omisore, was that he was insisting that his disqualification was a huge joke. And people have also questioned the process of consensus, because when you talk about consensus, we do understand that the process of primaries recognized under the law is direct, indirect, and consensus. But when you look at the mode of this consensus, it seems more as an imposition of candidacy rather than a fair and equitable consensus.
Well, it depends on how they go about the consensus. For instance, I'm aware that even if you have been picked as a consensus candidate, you still have to go through the entire process of the election and the delegates endorsing, the outcome, of the. If what Otumba Iola Omisore said yesterday is anything to go by, part of his argument was that he believed that the minister should have called all of them together so that they can judge and agree on where they are going. Well, he said that in the public, but I am aware that some leaders of the party had interacted with him.
But you don't see the consensus that other candidates or aspirants stepping down for Mr. Bola Oyebamji as an imposition of candidacy rather than consensus? That's the question many people are raising.
I don't think that is an imposition. An imposition is when they say whether you like it or not. This is the person we are going to. And
on the other side, a consensus is the concession of members involved, the agreement of all the stakeholders involved. In this case, all the aspirants involved. So we've not seen that. We only saw an acceptance based on the instance of the president. Doesn't this violate the principle of consensus you're talking about?
I don't think so. The process of the consensus, from the information available to me, the party will have to go through it, because that is why by this Saturday, there will still have to be an election. After the election, the delegates will meet to take a decision. And it is until the delegates endorse the outcome that the man becomes the flag bearer of the party. And I don't see that as an imposition. It will amount to an imposition if all the stakeholders, especially the other applicants, refuse to endorse the position of the leadership of the party. And don't forget that from time immemorial, that has been the style of the All Progressive Congress, from AD to AC to ACN. They try to introduce what I refer to as quality control in their choice of candidate. When Iyolo Omisore became the national secretary of the party, he wasn't the most qualified, he wasn't the most competent. Some persons were also talked into withdrawing from the race for him. At least I was involved in that, so I knew how that transpired.
Okay, so paint for me the picture of the current political situation in Osun State in light of all that's happening.
Well, APC should count itself lucky that the incumbent governor did not join the ADC. If the incumbent governor had joined the ADC, which is currently being led by Arigbeshola in the state, being the national secretary of the party, APC would have redoubled its efforts in their attempt to retake the state. The governor, as at yesterday, has been declared as a candidate of the Accord Party. If antecedent is anything to go by, I doubt if those who are in Accord Party will be able to work around the clock to ensure that the party is acceptable to the people and is well known within the polity, because from what transpired in 2022, the incumbent governor did not really win on the strength of his popularity. He was aided by some persons around the former president Muhammadu Buhari, and it was clear from the happenings, that surrounded his emergence. And so now, this is the first time he will be standing for an election based on his supposed popularity, and so we'll see how far he can go.
But that's rather spurious, because the former president, the late president, was in APC, and now you're saying that he supported this current incumbent who was in PDP as at the time of the election.
Well, not former President Buhari per se, but persons around him, and I will give you.
I just needed that clarification.
I will give you two instances. When the security agencies arrived at Osun, their first assignment was to pick up the chairman, the leader of the NUTRW in the state, who is also a member of the APC. And I would liken that incident to you going to Lagos to conduct an election, and your first assignment is to pick up MC Oluoma. That clearly will show to you that those who are for that assignment will certainly be hostile, and if they eventually became hostile. Then on the day of the election, while Osogbo, which has more voting population than Ede, finished voting by 4 to 5 p.m., they voted up till 11 p.m. in Ede, and that was what made the difference at the end of the day. And those who aided that activities were the same security agencies from the federal government. So that is why, for me, I concluded that those around the president headed that victory in 2022.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us here on Daybreak today. That was Ishmael Omipidan, Deputy Editor and Head of Politics at the Sun newspaper, and former CPS to former Governor Boyega Oyetola. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak today.